Good evening. Good evening and welcome. We're so glad that you're with us here tonight. As people are coming into the room, let me introduce myself. My name is Katie O'Leary, and I'm the Director of Engagement and Advancement here at HIU. And tonight's session is part of the What's Next series. This is an Alumni Council initiative where we are hopeful that we will be an ongoing resource to you as you consider what is next in your career. So please stay in touch with us about upcoming events in this series and otherwise by signing up for our newsletter. So I or one of my colleagues will put that sign up in the chat. That's the newsletter that comes on Fridays. Tonight's presentation will be about 35 to 40 minutes. We'll have Q&A for the last 15 or so minutes at the end. Please hold your questions. If you think it might be hard to remember your question, go ahead and put it in the chat, but just know that we'll take questions and have an interactive kind of conversation at the end. And now I will introduce tonight's presenters, who we are thrilled are going to be with us this evening, and I want you to really listen to what these two wonderful men bring to this conversation. So Imam Dr. Jawad Bayat is an ACPE certified educator. He's manager of clinical pastoral education for Trinity Health Mid-Atlantic, and that is a regional health system in the greater Philly area, where he supervises chaplain residents and interns throughout the region. So for more than a decade, Jawad has navigated leadership, Islamic chaplaincy, spiritual care across university, community, medical, and behavioral health settings. So I hope that wide range is going to be really helpful to you tonight. He is among the first Muslims and first Afghan American ACPE certified instructor or educator in the organization's history. He is also an alum of HIU's Islamic chaplaincy program. We're very proud of that. And he's a member of the HIU Alumni Council. He is also, and I love this on your LinkedIn, you are a girl dad, and they are lucky girls. I love that. Joining Jawad is his colleague, Reverend Allan Robinson, who is manager of spiritual care for Trinity Health Mid-Atlantic, where he manages the spiritual care operations throughout the region. He is an ordained itinerant elder in the African Methodist Episcopal Church, serving as a pastor for New Bethel AME Church of Germantown in Philly. He also serves as a certification specialist for the Association of Professional Chaplains. In this role, he facilitates the process for candidates to become board certified according to the BCC guidelines and standards. Fun fact about Allan is that he years ago earned his degree in accounting at Pennsylvania State University before answering the call to ordained ministry. So nobody can argue that accounting is a great background for anything, right? So with that, let me turn it over to you two, and thank you so much again for tonight's presentation.
No, it's an honor to be here, and I'm also very thankful to my friend and colleague Allan for accepting my request to be able to do this together. I'm lucky in many ways, but one of the main thing is that Allan happens to also work with me, and he is an APC certification specialist. And with the changes that are happening with an APC that particularly take place this month, I thought, why not engage us together and do an interview style presentation? So what you're going to see here is I'm going to be doing it sort of the best I can as like a podcast experience, where I'm going to engage Allan's wisdom and experience and knowledge around certification through Board Chaplain Certification Incorporated, correct, BCCI, and Allan's experience around that. So we got some questions here. I'm going to throw to him. We'll indulge in those insights and move forward. And what you're going to notice is that it goes from the beginning to the end in terms of the meeting. So we're gonna go on this introductory journey. Right? So I invite you to journey with us. Secondly, with the questions that you have, you're welcome to place them in the chat, and I'll attend to them best I can. But whatever you have, if I don't mention it, then we'll definitely be able to address it during the Q&A session. So Bismillah, meaning in the name of God. And so, Alan, in your experience, when someone is interested, and they want to get into this professional chaplaincy and they want to get certified and really move forward in that direction, how do they know that they're ready to become board certified? Like, what's the eligibility criteria? What are the qualifications to get them started?
Well, Jawad, I first want to say thank you for the invitation to invite me to join in with you and in this podcast style conversation about the board certification process. So I'm honored, I'm delighted to be a part of this occasion tonight. And so let's jump right into it. So how do you know you're ready to be board certified, or what's the eligibility? Well, the first thing you want to look at is your educational requirement. In order to be board certified, you have to have a master level education. Okay. And so a master level education that is accredited by the Council of Higher Education accreditation in America. So that's important. The next thing is important is to figure out which track you want to go on. First track is board certified chaplain. And then the second track is the associate certified chaplain. The board certified chaplain is the most popular track that everybody jumps on. And so in order to meet the eligibility requirement there, you need 72 credit hours of master level education in the area of theology, philosophy, or psychology. And there are certain numbers of credits hours you need specifically that is I could get into the nitty gritty, but just want to give you the general idea. Master Divinity will probably be suffice, but there are other degrees that will be helpful in this process. The second thing you will need is to have 4 units of CPE accredited by the Association of Clinical Pastoral Education. And that is necessary for board certified chaplain. There are one little minor equivalency, and that is that sometimes candidates come through with units of CPSP. We allow one of that, but the rest have to be accredited by ACPE. That's the general nutshell, and also endorsement is important. You need to be endorsed by your own faith tradition, whatever that faith tradition that you're a part of. And so we need a letter of endorsement that will say that you are the representative or authority, someone that they are covering you in the process. That's pretty much in a nutshell that's needed for a board certified chaplain. I do want to talk a little bit about the associate certified chaplain. The associate certified chaplain, it doesn't happen often, but there are some candidates that come through. You still need a master level education, but you don't need 72 hours. You just need 48 hours of credits. And also, you don't need all 4 units of CPE. You just need 2 units of CPE. And along with the endorsement that you need in order to begin this process.
Okay. And to the point that you made about the degree, like the academic degree, the 72 credits, like for instance, 72 credits, for instance, like myself, I graduated from the Islamic chaplaincy program at Hartford, and it was an MDiv equivalent. So it's the equivalency that's there that I think you were referencing. And then also I am aware that endorsement, like you said, is particular, but for individuals who might not have, or like there is an equivalence, there is like an equivalent, isn't there some like equivalency process or some other approach where they could do it? I know that that's like its own big thing at the moment, but for those who have like non-traditional like religious backgrounds or X, Y, and Z, could you briefly comment on that?
That's a good question. So a lot of people get nervous when they hear endorsement from their faith tradition, especially for those that's coming from a non-traditional path. Those who consider themselves humanist, or those who may not be really all that involved in their quote unquote faith tradition. There is an equivalency to that, and that is that the Association of Professional Chaplains actually has its own committee where you are able to submit an application essay application, articulating who you are, what you're about, what's your background, and that the committee that's related to and affiliated with the Association of Professional Chaplains will examine you, and they will become your endorsing agent. And so that's the path that one could take. And there are other paths out there that are available. There are some online, I hate to say it, but there are some online organizations out there that could serve as your endorsing agent. The Humanist of Society organization, for those who consider themselves humanists, that kind of society have its own process of endorsing, and so people could go through that process and get their endorsing letter. One way or another, there are multiple ways to get there, so you need not to be afraid of sort of getting engaged in that process, because all of us come from different faith traditions. All of us come from even non-faith tradition. But the point of the matter is that you have to get some kind of endorsing in your application. Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciated that creative process to be able to, not remove the gate, but to make it inclusive. So I appreciated that effort. So, I had briefly mentioned that there was a formal process. Let's call that a former APC certification process. But starting this month, from what I understand, this month of October 2024, there's a new process that's starting. What should applicants know about this current process? Because people are going to talk about, oh, it was like this. Especially if folks aren't aware of that. So what's important to know about this current process? And feel free to, compare it as needed to the former one.
So the new process that's being implemented as we speak is there is a rubric. Before, when I went through and other that went through to seek their board certification, we had 31 competencies that we have to write and demonstrate our skill set against those competencies. And when we meet with the committee, it's pretty much a committee of our peers, a committee of other chaplains who will look at the competency and ask questions that they feel is best that you shouldn't know or have some awareness of pertaining to that particular competency. And so it was a very much a subjective process, and trusting the wisdom of the group to make the determination whether you meet the competency or not. The new process is more rigid in the sense of trying to get rid of that subjectivity out of the process and to create a rubric in which that is sort of serve as a standard among all committees that's serving to meet the candidates and to make sure that all standards is being applied equally across the board. So each competencies have certain rubrics that you need to meet. You need to meet this. You need to check this box. You need to check this box. You need to check this box. And if you didn't check this box, then it put you in a certain category, ranging from met, needs clarification, to met or exceeded. And the goal is to get met in each of these competencies. Also, we got rid of 2 competencies that previously was like an observable competency, right? And we have come to realize that we don't need that because everybody meets that. So it has been reduced from 31 to now to 29 competencies, that each competency has its own set of rubric that the committee must follow, abide by, and to measure each candidate against. And this ensures that there's no bias. Well, there's going to be bias, of course, but we're trying to reduce the bias as much as possible, as well reduce the level of subjectivity in the process to ensure that all persons from all faith tradition, from all social location, wherever you are, in your race, culture, whatever, get equally treated in this process.
Mm-hmm. So I hear that. And so could you comment on how the rubric helps perhaps both how you imagine the rubric could help both the folks in the committee or the people assessing, but also the applicant themselves. A
That's a
few
good
thoughts on that.
question.
Yeah.
So part of your application process is that you have to write essays, okay? And so you have to write 4 essays essentially, okay? And each essay is related to the competencies, okay? And back in the day, what will happen is that when you write against to each of the competencies, you're required to demonstrate your knowledge in terms of what is your conceptual understanding or what is your theory, and then put your theory in practice. So that's the dance between the two in each of the competency. What is your theory, and give me an example of you applying that theory in your work as a chaplain. It was very much, it's like back when I went through the process, like, well, does this fit? Does this work? They did had a writing guide, but that wasn't even so helpful. But with this new rubric that's coming out, it tells you exactly what needs to be in your essay for each of the competency. And so it makes your life so much easier where you literally could take the rubric, it is available for everybody to see, and check yourself. Did I address this? Did I address this? Did I identify this? And if not, then you need to work at your essay in order to meet those rubric. So it serves as a great tool and makes the process so much easier. I'm working with one person right now, and I've discovered that this person finds that this rubric was so helpful in bringing a whole lot of clarity and understanding in terms of what each of the competencies is looking for.
And would you say that this isn't to say right to the grid, but to let it inform you? There's still that desire. Would you say that congruence is still like necessary in a way? You know, what would you say?
Do not write to the rubric is the thing I would say, because we'll definitely be looking for congruency. Part of the application process is to write a biographical sketch of who you are. And
Okay.
so as you write your biographical sketch of who you are in your work as a chaplain, we look for congruency in who you are as a person and chaplain, and your essays as you demonstrate your competencies. And so we could look at this as a bigger picture and say, this is a little incongruent. And chaplains are very skillful of picking up incongruencies, and they will go for it. And so it's important to be true to who you are as a person and who you are as a chaplain, and just sort of engage this process, right? And so just write out your theories and write out your examples as according to your work, and then use the rubric as at the end to sort of check, do I have this? Do I have that? If not, at least the work is already congruent to who you are, and all you have to do is just add additional elements that's needed to make it so that you met the competency. Did that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's also a life lesson in this. Congruency, it serves you in many ways. But so here's yeah, absolutely. I think it does for me. And so,
and can I speak to about the biographical sketch?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so the biographical sketch is one essay that's basically serve as a information to the committee to get an understanding of who you are. Now, many people see, okay, I got to write a biographical sketch, and so they write it in a chronological order. I was born on this day. This happened to my life on this day. And when I turned 13, I met this girl, and this girl caused me trauma in my life. And when I turned 15, I had this teacher, and they just sort of worked their way down to the chronological account of their life. I had a death in my family. I lost my grandma. You name it. That's not, I believe, this is important. I believe that's not the intent of the biographical sketch. The intent of the biographical sketch, or I believe a good biographical sketch would be, is that identify the key markers in your life that makes you the kind of chaplain that you are. For example, if I were to
Mm-hmm.
talk about a key marker in my life, one example I would use to talk about my hearing loss. I do have a hearing loss, right? And so I will talk about how that impact me as a person and how this makes me the kind of chaplain who I am. And so in this case, that as a person, it impacts me that I am, someone who listen intently. I'm very much observing people's behavior and actions, and it's necessary because I don't necessarily hear with my ear, but I hear with my eyes. And so as a chaplain, that's what I do. As a chaplain, I hear with my eyes. I'm very observant to what's happening around me. That includes reading lips as well as listening with my ears, and the list goes on. This makes me the kind of chaplain who I am, that I listen intently and have a sense of discernment of hearing stories. That's just an example.
Yeah, no, that's powerful. Yeah, the biographical sketch, when you write it, it should be written with purpose.
Indeed.
And and so if you do it chronologically, that could be missed. So just remember that you're writing this and you're trying to write it for a purpose, giving folks the who are going to be reading this an impression. But it's also a good solid practice, I think, too. And that might even go back to your vocational call in a way, but still with biography. It's not necessarily your call story, but it is a biographical experience. Yeah. So they got the biographical sketch that they got to prepare. They got to write the essays. What else do they need to prepare for now that they're in the preparation of the materials? They got those two. What else they got?
And the last thing you have to prepare is what we call clinical narratives. In CPE world, they call it verbatim. And so two clinical narratives that also meet some certain elements of the competencies in terms of you have to sort of demonstrate your work through your clinical narrative, and that is that you pick a case in which you have engaged with a patient or a client, and you have this conversation. Hi, and the person says hi, and how are you feeling today? And it's a conversation by conversation based account. And once you have that account, then it's your analysis of that event that includes what's your assessment? How did you initiate the conversation? How did you deepen the conversation, and how did you close or sort of conclude the conversation in your care? What other analysis that you could provide that's related to your assessment? And so those are things that you have to sort of express in your clinical narratives.
Okay, all right. So related to you got the biographical sketch now, because right now at this point you already know that you're eligible. You met the qualifications. You're preparing the materials, and these materials is the biographical sketch, it's the verbatims, and it's the essays. So you've mentioned that congruence, writing with purpose, are important advice factors. Any other advice related to these areas that we're preparing for that you would offer from your perspective as an APC certification specialist?
Yeah,
Things that like you're like, wow, this person's got it. Like that make you excited. We know that there's the met part. Like, what are the things that really, make you feel like when you're as a reader, like this is it?
That's a good question. One of the things that I've noticed is that those persons who are successful in the process are those persons who sought out a BCC mentor, someone who's already a board certified chaplain that have been through this process and have an understanding of this process. They have a way of helping candidates to sort of restructure the materials in such a way that and how to present it to the committee. And not only they help you in how to restructure your material and your essays and your biographical sketch, as well your clinical narratives, but they make sure that you are meeting the competencies. Because part of the challenge is this: when we write the essay to the competencies, we tend to put in other information that we feel that is necessary to put in there. And all it does is just eat up your counts or word counts or letter, is it word counts or
character
counts? It's a character counts, right? And so then you get to this dynamic of, oh my gosh, how in the world I'm going to address the competencies when I'm running out of characters? Well, here's the secret to the sauce. speak to the competencies. Don't put stuff in there that is not going to speak to the competency. That's not necessary. Like sometimes we like to say, I knock on the door and the person received me. That's not necessary, right? Get to the point, be direct, and speak to the competency. You'll discover that you have plenty of room to speak to the competency and leave the other stuff out for the other competencies. Because I guarantee you, the stuff that you're addressing or that you're trying to put in one sort of competencies, you could parse it out and say, oh my gosh, this really could address another competency, right? Or this part could address this particular competency. And then before you know it, you're very narrow, you're very focused on talking about your theory and giving an example. That leads me to my second secret to the sauce. For every competency that you have to address, begin with a theory. It's essential. Tell the committee what is the theory or the foundation of your work that you're functioning by. It doesn't need to be in-depth. It just needs to be succinct and straight to the point. And then give an example of how you put that theory in life in your work.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of intentionality and purpose that I hear as themes, that you're writing with intent and purpose, and sometimes you can get distracted, so the mentor can serve as someone who's been down the road, the journey, to help bring you back on track, because it sounds like it is something that's like that. And so what you're folks, if you're already noticing this, that you see, I mean, everyone has had already to do like 4 units of CPE, but once you start doing the preparation for these materials, there's a shift. And sometimes if you're in your final unit of CPE, many educators like myself might try to prep students for what the transition looks like, leadership, writing a certain way, trying to perform, trying to be able to articulate the impact you have. And so you see some of this with outcome-oriented chaplaincy, which is, broadly speaking, what I believe Allan is also within the umbrella of. So this is all really good practice, and it all goes back into where the field as a whole is also moving. So is it worth? So another thing that I when Allan and I were prepping for this, I think it's important to know that this is introductory. He hasn't named all the competencies. He's named that there's 29, but all this information that Allan has been sharing is available on the website. I'll put that link in as well, so you're empowered with that. But what we want to do is give you this kind of experience that you really can't capture by reading it there, or so this advice, these insights. So now getting back on track here, so would you say with that advice and they're able to be faithful in all that experience, now that it's done, how is the material submitted? Mm-hmm. And then what is happening on the BCCI side?
Yeah, good question. So first of all, you have to be tech savvy. You have to know how to use the computer in order to submit your material. If you go to the apchaplains.org website, that's the website that's going to give you all the information that you need to know about the Association of Professional Chaplains. There is a link within that website that will say becoming board certified. Click on that link. It will give you all the information that you need in terms of the application process. As Jawad shared, that link will be provided to you, so you get directly to that website. And this is also the same place you will go to submit your application. And it will take you to a portal. You have to establish an account, basic information, name, address, and the list goes on. And then it will take you to the next part of the portal where you actually have to put it in your, your biographical sketch, essay in. Then for each competency, you have to put in your essay. Okay, so there are 29 competencies. So you have to do like 29 essay format to each of the competencies. I have already given you the secret to the sauce. Start with the theory. Theory, example. Theory, example. You're going to forever remember me that there was this chaplain, this man who says theory and example. If you don't remember anything and you're interested in chaplaincy, when you go for board certification, just remember theory, example. It's important because it makes life so much easier when you write your competency in that format, in my humble opinion. And so when you finish completing all of the essays for each of the competencies, including submitting 2 clinical narratives, as well uploading your endorsement letter, and the list goes on, then you hit submit. Now, on the BCCI side, in terms of the office, they will examine the basic criteria in the sense of, do you have all the information needed to move forward to meet with the committee? So they are the ones that will make sure that your endorsement letter is legit. They are the ones that's going to make sure that your educational requirement, have you met the educational requirement? If not, the office will reach out to you and to talk about that. They are the ones that are going to make sure that you have, how can I forget this? You need 2 letter of references. Is it 2 or 3? It's 3. 3 letter of references. One from a random person that had experience with practice, a board certified chaplain, and a manager who oversees your work, that can speak to your work, right? And so those letter of references need to be also submitted. And so they are the ones that's just going to make sure that you have all of these components before you move to the committee. Once you have met all of these components, a committee will be established that will work with you and sort of examine your material. The committee will then receive your information, and there's all the committee members, there's typically made up of 3 to 5 people. Oftentimes it's 3 people, sometimes 4. Occasionally there'll be 5. That's rare. But there'll be committees made up of people that's where they try to find people or organize a community that, someone's familiar with the faith tradition, someone's familiar with the work context, and someone's familiar with, just having a broad committee that sort of meet all sort of diversity elements of who you are as a person. And so that committee will have some time to examine your material. They will read through your material. And there'll be one person in that committee that will have the responsibility to present what we call the presenter's report. That person will read each of the competency and give you from their perspective, not necessarily representing the perspective of the committee, but give you their perspective of some areas that you need to sort of bring some clarity. And so they will ask questions. They will frame their response in a question. I've noticed that you talked about this. I'll be looking forward to hearing you speak more about this. Great job in addressing this. I would like for you to also speak to this. The purpose of the presenter report is to give you a sense, to give you an idea of how much work you need to do in meeting with the committee. And so, yes, you have to do some prepping work and say, okay, let me respond to the presenter report, and you can write it down and look at your rubric and get some clarity and in terms of how to address the question that the presenter sort of posed to you, and you bring that with you to the committee. And then you go from there, and the committee will just engage you, and they will be looking for you to address what was raised as well. There are other members of the committee that may look at other areas of the competency that they felt that you also need to address. I hope that covers that broad.
It covers a lot. Yeah, that does cover like that broad spectrum. So first, you got to be tech savvy. So in other words, the application is done the submission is done online. So you've submitted that, and now your part is done. You're waiting. BCCI now, the folks on that side have received it. They're evaluating to make sure you broadly met the criteria. If you have, then it moves forward. Otherwise, they'll be back in touch to say we need some clarification on this or X, Y, and Z. But let's just say it goes forward, then there's a committee that is put together without did you say that the committee gets together, or is it just that the presenter receives?
So the committee is put together in which
Okay.
each member of the committee receives your material.
Okay, they all receive it.
Right. And everybody, including the candidate, knows the names and the tradition of the person that's on the committee. The committee does not meet until
Does
the
not meet.
day of.
The day of. The day
Okay.
of.
So there's no interaction between committee members until the day of
Until the day
meeting
of.
you.
Okay. And so then, but the only interaction that will happen is that the presenter of that committee, the convener, perhaps we could call that person. No?
It's more the
No.
presenter of
The
we call it
presenter?
the presenter of the committee
Okay.
who will have to read through your material and create a presenter's report that will be submitted to you through the portal, in which you receive an email notification that the presenter has submitted a report for your view, and you have to receive that. I believe it's 14 days before.
Okay, 14 days before. 14 days before. So you got 14 days at least before the committee to be able to receive that, look at it, review it, prep yourself, and then the day comes.
The day comes.
And now okay. So the day has come. In other words, if it has come to that day and you received the presenter's report, would you say that the person that's showing up, the applicant or the candidate, is is this a pass or fail? Like, I mean, that's the big question everyone's probably going to be thinking eventually. Like, I submitted materials, I got the presenter's report, I show up. Is there such a thing as failing? Like, what happens? Or is it all, for the most part, 99 out of 10 at a time, it's 9.5 or 9.9 out of 10? Like, what's the dynamics here?
That's funny. Well, so let me just say this: when you receive the presenter's report, if you have a mentor, it's good to go over the presenter's report with the mentor that can help you prepare you for meeting the committee. Some people go to the extent of creating a mock committee and share their presenter report to the mock committee, and they board certified chaplains and sort of engage you in that way. People have different ways of preparing to meet with the committee. Now, when it comes to the committee, right, the goal is this: have you met the competency, either in written or verbally? If the committee feels like you have not met the competency in your writing, you have an opportunity when you meet with the committee to meet the competency verbally. And there have been times where people just sort of butcher up the competencies in writing, but massively, skillfully met it orally. And once that happens, you pass. And so I guess that's the concept to keep in mind, is that is either you meet your competency in writing or orally. And so the presenter report will just let you know that these are the areas where you need some work, and we'll be looking for you to provide some clarity to those particular competencies orally. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so then during that meeting, right? Let's just say there are some areas that need clarification. Could you share with us how structured is it then? Like, what is it? Just whoever's there? Like, is it the candidate is leading it? Is it that someone is saying, "Oh, here's this part. Can you talk to this? Can you talk to that?" What's the nature of this committee meeting? How many minutes is it? Things like that.
Good question. So every committee has up to an hour and a half with the candidate. And so you have an hour and a half to demonstrate everything, all 29 competencies in your committee. So they're not going to focus on the competency that they already feel that you met. They're going to raise the competencies that the committee feels that you need some work on. Okay, some of which you already know through the presenter's report, but that's only one person perspective. There are 2 or 3 other members of the committee that may have some other areas where they felt that you have to do some work in meeting those competencies. Now, every committee is set up differently. It depends on the nature of the committee. But for the most part, most committee begins with the introduction. Everybody introduce themselves, including the candidates, and then they give it to the candidate to sort of lead the way. And the best way to lead the way is to start with the presenter's report, because you already been working on it, right? So you already have a response. So respond to the presenter report. I noticed that you had asked me to bring some clarity to this. This is how I'm bringing clarity to this particular competency. And then the committee will dance with you as you address each of the competency. They're not going to let you move on to the next competency unless they feel like they have gotten everything that they needed to know before they move to the next competency. Now, there are times when the committee will try to work with you on a particular competency. For whatever reason, you're not meeting it. They will just move on because they need to address other competencies. The goal is to get you to address as many competencies that you can within an hour and a half, because there are certain thresholds that you need to meet in order to be considered board certified. There are some cases where you did not meet all of the competencies, so a subsequent hearing is required. Now, there are some cases where you have met all of what we call professional practice skill competencies. That's the heart, the bread, and the butter of chaplaincy. There are 11 competencies in that category. If you met all of that and have a few, 2, 3, 4 competencies lingering in other areas, the committee is able to grant you what we call provisional board certified chaplain, because it's saying that you have met the bread and butter of chaplaincy, but there's some other competencies that you need to work on, and we're asking you to come back to the committee to address those particular competencies that the committee feels that you need to work on. There are other cases where that's not the case, that you didn't really meet the threshold of provisional status, that you have to meet the committee again by way of subsequent hearing to address the however number of competencies that the committee wants you to come back to work on. The beauty about the process is that the ones that you have met, you don't have to worry about that anymore. You just need to work on the ones that you need to work on when you meet with the committee the second time. And the meeting with the committee the second time is not the same group. It's a whole different committee that's been put together after you submit your material the second time in addressing the competency that the first committee felt that you need to work on. And then once you submit that application, and again, same setup, the office will establish a committee, and that committee's sole job is to focus on the competencies that the first committee felt that you need to work on.
Now, could that be done in writing, or is that like a written, or is that oral, verbal that has to be done for the subsequent one where you have maybe 5 left to address?
It's all in writing first. You have to address your competency in writing again.
Okay.
And again, once you submit your application for subsequent hearing and addressing those competencies that you need to work on, and then what will happen is that same process, the presenter of the committee will write, on those committees, the competencies that you need to work on, and then you meet with the committee and engage in the conversation in that way too.
Okay. So it mirrors it. It's just less because you don't have to represent everything, which is really neat. So there's in it, I'm hearing that the process is intended to help you be successful. So
that's the goal.
I hear it in that. So let's just say, the committee appearance, how you have it, you're done it, the 90 minutes are over. How soon will you know you passed?
You will know. So when the committee, after you finish meeting with the committee, the good news is this is all done virtually. Okay, so you sit in a virtual waiting room. The committee has an hour to deliberate. Okay, and so while you're sitting in the committee in the waiting area with staff and representatives from the office that's there to sort of help you with the anxiety, to have you relax. They would tell you, go to the bathroom, go get something to drink. We'll let you know when the committee wants you to come back, right? In the meantime, the committee has an hour to deliberate and to go over your material, okay? Once they have arrived to a decision, they will send notice to the person that's in charge of that waiting area that, okay, now the committee is ready to meet you again, all in the same day. and that committee, the chairperson will share the news, whether you have attained board certified chaplain or provisional status, or you need additional subsequent hearings.
Wow, and that pretty much. So I sense that many of the times it's like either mostly it's like certified or provisional, and so and even like for provisional, I realize that it's there's a few more you got to work on, or for many people they might be provisional because they haven't met those 2,000 hours right away. Let's just say they completed everything, but they haven't done. So provisional, it's just in the link I put on into the chat, y'all can see what Allan has been describing here. And so basically within an hour, they come back, they give that recommendation. And so now they're board certified. And then they, from what I understand, is this correct, Allan? They formally get inducted, I guess, into board certified chaplains at what is the
Yeah,
process?
so every year, the Association of Professional Chaplains have this major conference where all the chaplains all throughout the world come together, and there you sort of celebrate your certification status. But even before then, the board of the APC organization have to come together to sort of ratify the decision of the committee. So the committee gives their recommendation to the board to say that we recommend that Jawad Bayat have met all the competencies and to be board certified. The committee or the board of the organization votes on it, and once they vote upon it, then you receive a formal letter and congratulating you that you're now board certified. You get a lovely pen, you get a nice little certificate that you can put in your office that you are a board certified chaplain. Let me speak briefly about the provisional status, right? There, there have been times for those persons who have just completed their residency program, like literally just completed, or used the last and final unit of their residency program to write their application for APC. They don't have the 2,000 work hours, but they have the 4 units of CPE. They have all those things in place, and so not if you met all of the competencies but lack the 2,000 hours, we will grant you provisional status. And once you reach the 2,000 hours, all you have to do is just have the employer, your boss, submit a letter to APC, or you get the letter and submit it to APC certifying that I've worked 2,000 hours. And that's it. Then they elevate your status from provisional to a board certified chaplain.
There you
Now,
go.
and that's also the same thing for the associate certified chaplain too. They are associate certified chaplains, or provisional associate certified chaplain is required to have 2,000 hours too. So that's the same process there.
Yeah. Wow. This has been really rich. So I mean, at this point, we've taken you through the whole journey from beginning to end, introductory, and so we invite any questions y'all have for us.
This has been tremendous. I wonder if people have questions, you could do the raise your hand, and Jawad can see you too, can't you, the gentleman?
Yes.
And Allan, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very rich content. Can I get us started with a question?
Mm-hmm.
I think it was you, Allan, who said you don't want to go it alone. You need a BCC mentor. Is that easy to come by, or any advice on that front?
Yeah, so you could easily call the Association of Professional Chaplain and office and say, hey, I'm looking for a BCC mentor, and they will find out where you're located, and they will sort of give you a list of board certified chaplains that lives in the area for you to sort of seek after. Each of the region has like a chair of the region, and so that person will be in contact with you to get a sense and a feel of who you are, and sort of try to match you with the person that they're thinking of, that they might feel that you're a good fit. Also, you may find a BCC mentor, someone in your office. There's somebody in the hospital that you work at or the nursing home that you work at in hospice that's already board certified. If you have a good working relationship with that person and you like the person and you don't mind learning from that person, ask that person to be your BCC mentor.
Mm.
I see Ann O'Connor has a question.
Yes, and I sent it to you in the chat, but my question is, I took 1 unit of CPE in 2009. I looked back, it was 2009 at Yale New Haven Hospital, and I did my clinical work there and everything, and all the verbatims and everything. So I was wondering, do you count something that's that old, 2009?
If you have record that says that you have taken CPE unit, it counts.
Yeah. Oh,
That's all
okay.
And related
right.
to the account there, you can get, you can get the ACPE transcript online. And so you can just go to the acpe.edu website, log in, and you can get your transcript there, and that'll show proof of it.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I took it with Peg Lewis. I don't know if you know Peg Lewis, but she's a
I
star.
don't. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Is there anything you two wish you had known at the beginning? Advice to your younger self?
Well, I would say this. I have worked in the field of chaplaincy now close to, oh my gosh, almost 20 years. I can't believe it's been that long, right? But I was working as a chaplain for about 10 years, not as a board certified chaplain. Okay. And there was a period of me, honestly, I was avoiding doing the application, this long essays and all of that stuff. And the one thing I wish I had done it earlier. Okay. It really is an easy process if you sort of take a bite at it a little bit at a time, and also working alongside with a BCC mentor. I end up doing the process because I wanted to advance my skill and I wanted to move forward in different elements in my career, and so I had to do it. And it was painless, but a lot of work,
It's a lot of work.
time consuming, and it depends how how zealous you are. For example, in my team, I required or encouraged all my chaplains to get board certification once I hired them, and I literally give them an assignment that your only job is to complete this application. And so they would sit in the office for about roughly an average of 3 months every day, full time, to work on their material. And I like, that's your job. And so they work at it. So it takes time, and so it does take a lot of work. But if you take at it bites at a time, you'll get it done.
Excellent. Any other questions? If not, I want to thank you two so much. I mean, this was rich. And Allan, theory example, right?
Indeed.
This is so interesting, really interesting. Thank you very much. And again, thank you to all of you who have joined us tonight. Sign up for the newsletter. Look for the next in this series of What's Next. We've got another one coming next month, and I wish you all well. I want to send out prayers for our brothers and sisters in Florida right now. Let's send them all we've got. All right. We know that works.
Thank you for having us, and certainly we join with you sending prayers.
Thank you. Good night, all.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night.